But speak slow down. Speak a little bit more slowly and more simple, but loud.
But loud. All right. So the Gilgamesh may or may not have existed around 2700 BC. Can you hear me now? All right. Who wrote about him? Well, probably poets and writers. But you know, the truth of the matter is that in the ancient Near East, you had a very strong scribal tendency. People would sit around and text again and again and again. When did they put them together? I will tell you more about that in a second. So it's probably more likely that it was a fourth type of literature because it is, after all, a buildings roman, as you will see. It's a story about the education of a human being, learning about how to deal with issues that are very important to all of us. Can you hear? I'm still speaking too fast, right? All right. The medium. All right. The medium is the important thing here. They are written on clay tablets. So when you have a clay tablet, normally you would have at most about 180 lines. Very often they're much less than that and smaller tablets. So if you want to have a piece of literature, you better confine it to 189. However, what makes the Gilgamesh epic amazing is that over time it became written over a great number of tablets, which is very rare in the ancient world, so that it covers up about 11 tablets, perhaps even 12. And if you put it together, I made a note about it, you'll probably have about 3,100 lines altogether, which is really exceptional. This man who just walked in, he's probably 92, but he's very young, he keeps counting. All right, so they're written on clay tablets. One of the clay tablets that I have here is a bad copy. I made it myself from dental plaster of the 11th tablet of the Gilgamesh epic, which is about the flood story that you have heard about, maybe because it duplicates in many ways what you have in the Bible, right? So far, so good. And finally, when and how was the epic preserved? Let's look at section 2, all right? Look at section 2. In section 2, you have the earliest stories about Gilgamesh were written in Sumerian, which is not a Semitic language. The language that is dead, has been dead for thousands of years. No one knows exactly where to place it in the history of the human languages. Nonetheless, it was there. There were probably 5 different tales about Gilgamesh, a character named Gilgamesh. Very few of them duplicate what you find in the major epic that I will talk about. The other ones are the Semitic language, Gilgamesh. You have around 1700 BC began this notion of weaving together various stories about Gilgamesh. So around 1700 BC, or maybe earlier, you already have some notion of stories about Gilgamesh that are attached to each other and linked to each other, probably no more than 3 tablets. So in all, about 600 line, maybe 700 line. And then the big one that we have, we've never had a complete one. So we put it together from various little tablets that we find all over the Mesopotamia. So around 700 BC, probably earlier, maybe 900 BC, is probably what we have, the classical version of the Gilgamesh epic, which is written on 11 tablets. Some people say 12, but really 11 tablets, around 3,100 lines, which is about the size of Beowulf. Nothing like the Iliad or the Odyssey, but about the same size. There is also a version in a language that is not Semitic, an Indo-European language. Hittite covers about 3 tablets. And we don't know exactly how many lines it was because everything is fragmentary there, but it was in an entirely different language. And in fact, the stories about Gilgamesh were quite different there, which means that they just used the character Gilgamesh. Okay, now I read to you what I would be reading to you is tablet 1 and parts of tablet 2. The rest of it we'll have to do it another time. At the Carolina Meadows, I'll be giving a 3-session on the Gilgamesh epic. Anyone can go if they would like to, probably sometimes in February, right? So we start. Take a sip of water. I should warn you, it's a bit spicy. So if you are at all worried about such issues, you're warned. Okay. Okay, so we start. He had seen everything, had experienced all emotions, from exaltation to despair, had been granted a vision into the great mystery, the secret places, the primeval days before the flood. He had journeyed to the edge of the world and made his way back, exhausted but whole. He had carved his trials on stone tablets, had restored the holy Eanna temple and the massive wall of Uru, which no city on earth can equal. See how its ramparts gleam like copper in the sun. Climb the climb the stone staircase, more ancient than the mind can imagine. Approach the Eanna temple, sacred to Ishtar, a temple that no king had equaled in size or beauty. Walk on the wall of Uru, follow its course around the city, inspect its mighty foundation, examine its brickworks, how masterfully it is built.
May not need to hold that close to your mouth.
That's the problem.
All right, I'm gonna read loud. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Happiness. Observe the land it imposes, the palm trees, the gardens, the orchards, the glorious palaces, the shops and marketplaces, the houses, the public squares. Find the cornerstone, and under it, the copper box that is marked with his name. Unlock it, open the lid, take out the tablet of lapis lazuli, read how Gilgamesh suffered all and accomplished all. Surpassing all kings, powerful and tall, beyond all others, violent, splendid, a wild bull of a man, unvanquished leader, hero in the front lines, beloved by his soldiers, fortress they called him, protector of the people, raging flood that destroyed all defenses, two-thirds divine and one-third human, son of King Lugalbanda, who became a god, and of the goddess Ninsun. He opened the mountain passes, he dug wells on the slopes, crossed the vast ocean, sailed to the rising sun, journeyed to the edge of the world in search of the eternal life. And once he found Utnapishtim, the man who survived the great flood and was made immortal. He brought back the ancient forgotten rites, restoring the temples that the flood had destroyed, renewing the statutes and sacraments for the welfare of the people and the sacred land. Who is like Gilgamesh? What other king had inspired such awe? Who else can say, I alone can rule, supreme among mankind? The goddess Aruru, mother of creation, had designed his body, had made him the strongest of men, huge, handsome, radiant, perfect. The city in his possession, he struts through it, arrogant, his head raised high, trampling its citizens like a wild bull. He is king. He does whatever he wants, takes the son from his father and crushes him, takes the girl from her mother and uses her, the warrior's daughter, the young man's bride. He uses her and no one dares to oppose him. But the people of Uru cried out to heaven, and their lamentation was heard. The gods are not unfeeling, their hearts were touched. They went to Anu, father of them all, protector of the realm of sacred Uru, and spoke to him on the people's behalf. Heavenly Father, they said, Gilgamesh, noble as he is, splendid as he is, has exceeded all bounds. The people suffer from his tyranny. The people cry out that he takes the son from his father and crushes him, takes the girl from her mother and uses her, the warrior's daughter, the young man's bride. He uses her too. No one dares to oppose him. Is this how you want your king to rule? Should a shepherd savage his own flock? Father, do something quickly before the people overwhelm heaven with their heartrending cries. Anu heard them. He nodded his head. Then to the goddess, mother of creation, he called out, Aruru, you are the one who created humans. Now go and create a double for Gilgamesh, his second self, a man who equals his strength and courage, a man who equals his stormy heart. Create a new hero. Let them balance each other perfectly so that Uru has peace. When Aruru heard this, she closed her eyes, and what Anunu had commanded, she formed in her mind. She moistened her hands, she pinched off some clay, she threw it into the wilderness, kneaded it, shaped it to her idea, and fashioned a man, a warrior, a hero, Enkidu, the brave, as powerful and fierce as the war god Ninurta. Hair covered his body, hair grew thick on his head and hung down to his waist like a woman's hair. He roamed all over the wilderness, naked, far from the cities of men, ate grass with gazelles, and when he was thirsty, he drank clear water from the waterholes, kneeling beside the antelope and deer. One day, a human, a trapper, saw him drinking with the animals at a waterhole. The trapper's heart pounded. His face went white. His legs shook. He was numb with terror. The same thing happened a third day. Fear gripped his belly. He looked drained and haggard, like someone who has been on a long, hard journey. He went to his father. Father, I have seen a savage man at the waterhole. He must be the strongest man in the world, with muscles like rock. I have seen him outrun the swiftest animals. He lives among them. He eats grass with gazelles, and when he is thirsty, he drinks clear water from the waterholes. I haven't approached him. I'm too afraid. He fills in the pits I have dug. He tears out the traps I have set. He frees the animals. I can catch nothing. My livelihood is gone. Son, in Uruk there lives a man named Gilgamesh. He is king of that city, the strongest man in the world, they say, with muscles like rock. Go now to Uruk. Go to Gilgamesh. Tell him what happened. Then follow his advice. He will know what to do. He made the journey. He stood before Gilgamesh in the center of Uruk. He told him about the savage man. The king said, go to the temple of Ishtar. Ask them for a woman named Shamhat, one of the priestesses who gives their body to any man in honor of the goddess. Take her into the wilderness. When the animals are drinking at the waterhole, tell her to strip off her robe and lie there, naked, ready, with her legs apart. The wild man will approach. Let her use her love arts. Nature will take its course, and then the animals who knew him in the wilderness will be bewildered and will leave him forever.
Okay.
Someone say something? The trapper found Shamhat, Ishtar's priestess, and they went off into the wilderness. For 3 days they walked. On the third day, they reached the waterhole. There they waited. For 2 days they sat as the animals came to drink clear water. Early in the morning of the third day, Enkidu came and knelt down to drink clear water with the antelopes and deer. They looked in amazement. The man was huge and beautiful. Deep in Shamhat's loins, desire stirred. Her breath quickened as she stared at this primordial being. Look, the trapper said, there he is. Now use your love arts. Strip off your robe and lie there naked with your legs apart. Stir up his lust when he approaches. Touch him, excite him. Take his breath with your kisses. Show him what a woman is. The animals who knew him in the wilderness will be bewildered and will leave him forever. She stripped off her robe and lay there naked, with her legs apart, touching herself. Enkidu saw her and warily approached. He sniffed the air. He gazed at her body. He drew close. Shamhat touched him on the thigh, touched his penis, and put him inside her. She used her love art. She took his breath with her kisses, held nothing back, and showed him what a woman is. For 7 days, he stayed erect and made love with her. Those were days. Until he had enough. At last, he stood up and walked toward the waterhole to join the animal. But the gazelle saw him and scattered. The antelope and deer bounded away. He tried to catch up, but his body was exhausted. His life force was spent. His knees trembled. He could no longer run. Like an animal as he had before, he turned back to Shamhat. And as he walked, he knew that his mind had somehow grown larger. He knew things now that an animal cannot know. Enkidu sat down at Shamhat's feet. He looked at her, and he understood all the words she was speaking to him. Now, Enkidu, you know what it is to be with a woman, to unite with her. You are beautiful. You are like a god. Why should you roam the wilderness and live like an animal? Let me take you to Great Wall Uru, to the temple of Ishtar, to the palace of Gilgamesh, the mighty king, who in his arrogance oppresses the people, trampling upon them like a wild bull. She finished, and Enkidu nodded his head. Deep in his heart, he felt something stir, a longing he had never known before, the longing for a true friend. Enkidu said, I will go, Shamsat. Take me with you to the great walled Uru, to the temple of Ishtar, to the palace of Gilgamesh, the mighty king. I will challenge him. I will shout to his face, I am the mightiest. I am the man who can make the world tremble. I am supreme. Come, said Shambhat, let us go to Uru. I will lead you to Gilgamesh, the mighty king. You will see the great city with its massive wall. You will see the young men dressed in their splendor, in the finest linen and embroidered wool, brilliantly colored with fringed shawls and wild belts. Every day is a festival in Uru, with people singing and dancing in the streets, musicians playing their lyres and drums. The lovely priestesses standing before the temple of Ishtar, chatting and laughing, flushed with sexual joy, and ready to serve man's pleasure in honor of the goddess, so that even old men are aroused from their beds. You are still so ignorant of life. I will show you Gilgamesh, the mighty king, the hero destined for both joy and grief. You will stand before him and gaze with wonder. You will see how handsome, how virile he is, how his body pulses with erotic power. He is even taller and stronger than you, so full of life force that he needs no sleep. Enkidu, put aside your aggression. Shamash, the sun god, loves him, and his mind has been made large by Anu, father of the gods, made large by Enlil, the gods of earth, and by Ea, the god of water and wisdom. Even before you came down from the hills, you had come to Gilgamesh in a dream. Shamhat told Enkidu, this is what I have heard. Gilgamesh went to his mother, the mother goddess Ninsun, and asked her to interpret the dream he had had. I saw a bright star. It shot across the morning sky. It fell at my feet and lay before me like a huge boulder. I tried to lift it, but it was too heavy. I tried to move it, but it would not budge. A crowd of people gathered around me. The people of Uru pressed in to see it. Like a little baby, they kissed its feet. This boulder, this star that had fallen to earth, I took it in my arms. I embraced it and caressed it the way a man caresses his wife. Then I looked, and then I took it and laid it before me. You told me that it was my double, my second self. The mother of Gilgamesh, Lady Ninsun, the wise, the all-knowing, said to her son, dearest child, this bright star from heaven, this huge boulder that you could not lift, it stands for a dear friend, a mighty hero. You will take him in your arms, embrace and caress him the way a man caresses his wife. He will be your double, your second self, a man who is loyal, who will stand at your side. Through the greatest dangers, he will be with you. Soon you will meet him, the companion of your heart. Your dream had said so. Gilgamesh said, may the dream come true. May the true friend appear, the true companion, who through every danger will stand at my side. When Shamhat had finished speaking, Enkidu turned to her, and again they made love. Tablet 2. Then Shamhat gave Enkidu one of her robes, and he put it on. Taking his hand, she led him like a child to some shepherd's huts. Marveling, the shepherds crowded around her. What an enormous man, they whispered. How much like Gilgamesh he is, tall and strong, with muscles like rock. They led him to their table. They put bread and beer in front of him. Enkidu sat and stared. He had never seen human food. He didn't know what to do. Then Shamhat said, Go ahead, Enkidu. This is food. We human eat it and drink this. Warily he tasted the bread. Then he ate a piece. He ate a whole loaf. Then ate another. He ate until he was full, drank 7 pitchers of beer. His heart grew light, his face glowed, and he sang out with joy. He had his hair cut. He washed. He rubbed sweet oils into his skin and became fully human. Shining, he looked handsome as a bridegroom. When the shepherds lay down, Enkidu went out with swords and spear. He chased off lions and wolves. All night he guarded the flocks. He stayed awake and guarded them while the shepherds slept. One day, while he was making love, he looked up and saw a young man pass by. Shamhat, he said, Bring that man here. I want to talk to him. Where is he going? She called out, then went to the man and said, Where are you going in such a rush? The man said to Enkidu, I am on my way to a wedding banquet. I have piled the table with exquisite food for the ceremony. The priest will bless the young couple. The guests will rejoice. The bridegroom will step aside, and the virgin will wait in the marriage bed for Gilgamesh, king of the great world. It is he who mates first with the lawful wife. After he's done, the bridegroom follows. This is how they order. This is the order that the gods have decreed. From the moment the king's birth cord was cut, every girl's hymen had belonged to him. As he listened, Enkidu's face went pale with anger. I will go to Uruk now, to the palace of Gilgamesh, the mighty king. I will challenge him. I will shout to his face, I am the mightiest. I am the man who can make the world tremble. I am supreme. Together, they went to the great wall Uruk, Enkidu in front, Shamhat behind. When he walked into the main street of Uruk, the people gathered around him, marveling. The crowds kept pressing closer to see him. Like a little baby, they kissed his feet. What an enormous man, they whispered. How much like Gilgamesh, not quite so tall, but stronger bone. In the wilderness, he grew up eating grass with gazelles. He was nursed on the milk of antelope and deer. Gilgamesh truly has met his match. The wild man can rival the mightiest of kings. The wedding ritual had taken place. The musicians were playing their drums and lyres. The guests were eating, singing, and laughing. The bride was ready for Gilgamesh, as though for a god. She was waiting in her bed to open to him in honor of Ishtar, to forget her husband and open to the king. When Gilgamesh reached the marriage house, Enkidu was there. He stood like a boulder, blocking the door. Gilgamesh, raging, stepped up and seized him. Huge arms, foreheads, and crashed like live bolts. The two men staggered. They pitched against houses. The doorposts trembled. The outer walls shook. They careened through the street. They grappled each other. Limbs intertwined, each huge body straining to break free from the other's embrace. Finally, Gilgamesh threw the wild man and with his right knee pinned him to the ground. His anger left him. He turned away. The contest was over. Enkidu said, Gilgamesh, you are unique among humans. Your mother, the goddess Ninsun, made you stronger and braver than any mortal, and rightly has Enlil granted you kingship, since you are destined to rule over other men. They embraced and kissed. They held hands like brothers. They walked side by side. They became true friends. That's the end of the second chapter. For the rest of the story, Enkidu and Gilgamesh say to each other, what are we wasting our time? And let us go and have adventure. So they go from one place to another. It's not worth going into the detail here, but ultimately they anger the gods. And the gods decided not to punish Gilgamesh, but to punish him even more than he imagined. And they killed Enkidu. So Enkidu dies, and at that point Gilgamesh realizes something that no one else had realized in his days, that people, although the gods and the people are similar, and the gods and people have the same type of feelings and, and caring, nonetheless, human beings are different and that they die. So when he discovered that, he would not believe. And the story becomes surrealistic. He goes from one place to another trying to find a way to avoid them. And at that point, he meets with Nabishin, whom he considered to be a great, powerful man, since he is one of the few human beings who have become immortal. And he asks him, what's your secret? And with Nabishin tell him, I have survived the flood. The gods were grateful. They made me eternal. No one can be like me. He still do not believe it. Nonetheless, by the end of the cycle, after many adventures, he realizes that that's all there is for him. And the cycle with Gilgamesh epic ends with the same lines that you had at the beginning when they had invite you to go to Uru and look at it and see how marvelous it is. So Gilgamesh may never come to, but he did, and that's it. Takes quite a bit of time. This I read it to you from this. I would never use this in a class, never, because it's really a somewhat sentimentalized reading of the Gilgamesh. It follows exactly the lines, but it tweaks them such to make them more attractive to us. He also adds and subtracts. Nonetheless, it's a good read, and he does a good job in conveying what the Mesopotamian must have felt like. Our problem is we don't have it. We various fragments and put it together. And every few years, they find a new segment from the Gilgamesh epic, and everyone goes hurrah, hurrah, and they publish more translations. So Gilgamesh could be. Okay, well, that's it. We have a question. I don't know if we have any more time or what. I read 20 minutes. It should be. All right, if you have questions, I'll be glad to answer them. As I said, this is the 11th tablet of the Gilgamesh epic. Bad copy. You can never read anything from the copy I made. But in the original book, it's written, it's a cuneiform, which is wedge-shaped writing tablet, because they didn't have papyrus. So you had to find a way to. Questions, anyone? Yes, go for it.
You think it was originally an oral transmission from person to person rather than nothing?
You know, there are two different schools of thoughts about these most literature. And some of them think they must have been told orally when they got that, and originally that it was first told from mouth to mouth until eventually someone wrote it down. That's probably true about many things, but I also believe that there was also a written notion of literature, which was conveyed from scribe to scribe and probably was not read by most people. So the Gilgamesh epic probably used a lot of orally blocks of narratives, but this writing it is too evolved to be just an oral form. People say the same thing about Homeric and Beowulf and other things. I don't know enough about that, except to tell you that many things were oral, and the two probably think each other. Yes, Judy.
And what you read, someone was writing how the Baptist last, you know, like.
Well, the story is that Gilgamesh wrote it after coming back, realizing that he would not have anything else. He told all his adventures, and he wrote it not like the rest of us on a clay tablet from dental plaster. He had practiced last week and wrote it on. All this is imaginative notion. But the idea is that Gilgamesh himself wrote the story. What you're reading is what he wrote. Is an adventure. Nothing is invented, It's a bit like what you have in the biblical tales. Everything is already conveyed by one generation after the other, and everything in it must be true. Any question? Yes.
We Homer and Moon did stories.
Now you have opened up cans and cans of worms. The question becomes, how does literature affect each other across the Mediterranean world? And there are people who would say there are fragments here and there in the Homeric epic that convey similar notion that the Gilgamesh epic. But Homer and the final form of the Gilgamesh epic are probably about the same time. I just think that about this time around the early first millennium BCE, people were striving to recreate the notion of heroic adventure development. As I said, building roman, that is stories that convey about how we develop, how we avoid things. Interestingly enough, in the Bible, there's a very strange little line about when Jacob's dying, and he gives a testimony about the various tribes, and he says this about this tribe and this about that tribe. When it comes to the tribe of Levi and Simeon, something there, he says, Simeon and Levi, in their anger, they killed a bull, and in their another form of anger, they killed a man. Now, there's nothing about Levi and Simon ever killing bull, but in the Gilgamesh epic, one of the major episodes, they killed a bull, and they were always together, and they killed a man, which is Kumbaba, the great boulder of the cedar forest. So some people think even the biblical text, you have echoes of the Gilgamesh. It's possible. I think it's very. Yes.
Is this the only epic that survives from the Babylonian or?
No, we have others, but
We have
nothing as exceptionally elaborate. We have stories of Adapa. As in that world, Mesopotamia, which was much closer, very little distinction between the world of the gods and the world of the gods were human in many ways, in every possible way. So people constantly are asking the same question, why are we different? And that being a major difference, birth giving. In the Bible, in the story of Genesis, you have a similar problem. Why is it that once you had one person who could have been eternal, Adam and Eve, so there's